are listening to the Alzheimer's Podcast with Mike Good of Togetherness, your number one resource for practical tips and insights, empowering you and your family to live well with Alzheimer's. Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Alzheimer's Podcast. I'm Mike Good of Togetherness. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast, where my goal is always to empower you to maintain a positive experience, reduce and eliminate the need for medications, and make your time together with those you care for the best it can be. In this episode, I'm going to expand upon something I briefly discussed in episode 4, where I talked about how to create positive experience in Alzheimer's care. And in it, I shared David Shear's comment about a decision you must make in order to avoid discord and create new, positive, loving memories. I'm going to refer to this as moments of joy together. Experiencing these moments of joy revolves around integrating purposeful activities and meaningful engagement into you and your loved one's daily life. Let me talk a bit about purpose and meaning, because these two words go to the core of our soul and spirit. Having purpose and meaning is what defines who we are. With it, we feel full and invigorated, but without it, we feel empty, lonely, and likely depressed. As humans, we're social creatures, and according to Aristotle, who you won't hear me quote very often, we naturally seek the companionship of others as part of our well-being. We all want to be loved, wanted, and part of something. And you and your loved one are no different. Our goal with this lesson is to help you learn to create purposeful activities and meaningful engagement where you and your loved one stay mentally and physically active and engaged. And hopefully, the both of you smile more as you create new and positive moments of joy and loving memories. These moments of joy will also benefit each of you by improving your health through mental and physical stimulation, avoiding loneliness and depression, minimizing negative behaviors from both of you, and again, helping you create new, positive, loving memories. It can also help your loved one maintain their independence and dignity. However, as the primary care partner, you may be so overwhelmed by the responsibility of caregiving that the fun of being together is lost. All engagement tends to be for survival, not enrichment. This often results in negative atmosphere affecting the mood of everyone, including the person with Alzheimer's. Left unchecked, these tensions will likely lead to behavioral issues from each of you, resulting in an unhappy relationship. Sometimes there may be very little positive interaction because you're simply too busy trying to keep the house together while caring for your loved one. A lack of human interaction coupled with no purposeful activity will likely lead to boredom from your loved one, and this often results in challenging behaviors that cause additional strain between each of you. Of course, you want your loved one to be happy, and you want to see them smile and hear them laugh. And you want and deserve to feel these positive emotions as well. Creating an environment that fosters these positive feelings will take hard work, but it can be achieved. And it has been achieved by families who have learned to stop fighting the disease and have learned to adapt to it instead. While you will routinely look back at how things were, it's vital you appreciate that the person with Alzheimer's is the same person they have always been. It's the disease that's making them act different, and typically the same activities, although maybe adapted to their abilities, will still bring happiness to their heart. You want to be sure to include activities they enjoy and want to do. Now, if you haven't listened to episode 4, I highly recommend you do, so you can learn more about focusing on remaining abilities and utilizing a person-centered profile to better understand your loved one's likes and dislikes. You must also include activities you enjoy and want to do. And sometimes that may simply come from seeing them be happy with what they are doing. Activities must be adapted to each person's abilities and the level of support adjusted accordingly. Be careful not to coddle them, but allow them to maximize their abilities. This does not come easy to most people because it takes special skills and training many of us don't have, including a combination of observation, patience, persistence, and creativity. Memory care communities have activity coordinators who are specially trained and skilled in this area. So as you work to develop these new skills, remember to be easy on yourself when things don't go as planned. You want to also think long-term and avoid repeatedly using short-term fixes. An example of this is using the TV as a sitter, so you can do your own thing. Eventually, your loved one will become bored, and again, boredom leads to trouble. You must find ways to be proactive because dealing with these issues after they occur will take more time and energy from you than if you discovered ways to provide ongoing purpose and meaning. Remember, as Dr. Jennifer Butte, who's living with dementia, says, do more with us and less for us. Now, this is a fine balance, and things may go much smoother if you just do it for them. But remember, this isn't about achievement as much as it's about enjoying time together, empowering them to stay independent, and protecting their dignity. Of course, sometimes you'll just need to get something done, but do your best to always treat them with dignity if you do need to take over the task. Don't blame them for not completing something. Find a way to blame the product or the process. For instance, if they're struggling to fold a shirt properly, say, I always have trouble with this shirt. Can I try? As I talk about activities, you may be thinking about fun, recreational types of activities, and I'll get to those. However, activities should also include activities of daily living, including the instrumental activities of daily living, such as shopping, paying bills, housekeeping, or cooking, or the basic activities of daily living, such as bathing, dressing, etc. These activities really go to the core of our purpose in maintaining our sense of self. Depending on your loved one's situation, you're quite possibly already assisting them with most of these. You may be even doing them all on your own, excluding your loved one, but you must find ways to include them. And by doing these things together, you will be giving them purpose while also creating social interaction. Nobody wants to be a burden, and your loved one wants to contribute for as long as possible. That will require you to help break tasks into smaller, simpler steps. You will need to find a balance of allowing them to perform tasks on their own while silently assisting them to successfully complete the task, remembering to provide praise and support even when something isn't done to your expectations. I say your expectations because you really have to reassess what's truly important, what is the right way, and who really cares. For instance, if mom puts her blouse on backwards, do you really have to point it out to her and make her feel bad? No, you don't. It would be better to compliment her on her lovely blouse and move on. If the two of you are leaving the house and you're trying to protect her dignity, however, you may have to be creative. Maybe say how much you like her in a different blouse and ask to see her in it instead. You're trying not to steal the activities that keep a loved one mentally and physically stimulated and engaged by empowering them and making them feel good. Now I want to briefly talk about a mental aspect of this and how you must work to keep the brain trained to do things. In episode 1, I talked about intellectual stimulation and the fact that researchers have proven that even the brain of an older adult can reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. That means the brain is still creating new pathways and memories, even as we age. That's pretty exciting. So maybe these new pathways will also bypass damaged pathways as well. The brain needs to be exercised, not just on an intellectual level, as I discussed in episode 1, but on a neurological level. Think about the concept of muscle memory and how many of the things in life we do automatically. Let's use eating as an example. If you continue to spoon feed someone while their hands are inactive and in their lap, their brain will start to disassociate arm movement to the mouth with self-feeding, and those neural connections maybe become lost. But if you put the spoon in their hand and guide their hand, you will be reinforcing this connection. That's just one example where you can help keep their brain trained to empower them to do things themselves. And of course, there are many other things in our daily lives where this should be applied. Now, let's discuss what I meant when I mentioned silent assistance. Of course, if you just do the task yourself, it will get done quicker and it will be done to your expectations. But think about how you would feel if someone no longer let you help with basic tasks around the house. Let's say you're working on something that your spouse is very skilled at doing, but you're not. Your spouse is looking over your shoulder. They don't even have to say anything, but you can sense their frustration that you're not completing the task fast enough. Imagine how that would make you feel. Now imagine they become vocal and start taking over the task, not allowing you to finish it on your own. And while you're envisioning that, assume you have dementia. I'm sure your feelings wouldn't be good, and you might feel useless, sad, embarrassed, and angry, among other things. You would likely end up getting into some kind of trouble when you push back and fight for your independence, and a loved one with dementia is no different. You must do your best to avoid this situation. If you point out to them that they aren't completing a task to your liking, you're basically pushing them further along the emotional roller coaster and towards isolation and depression. A better approach is to discreetly observe, not hover, and assess their skills at that moment. Empower them to be successful. You must avoid the all-or-nothing approach because this will rob them of their independence and purpose. Instead, you adapt and stay creative. Simplify processes as needed and break multi-step tasks into single steps. For instance, instead of saying brush your teeth, start with put some toothpaste on the toothbrush. Or maybe you have to start even simpler with pick up the toothbrush. Again, break complicated steps down into simpler individual steps. Maybe perform the task together. Seeing you do it will help them. You adapt this way every day, hour, and minute if required. I'm not saying any of this is easy, but you have to try. It's somewhat the opposite of raising a child. For instance, when preparing for dinner, you would let your child put out the placemat several times before you let them handle the plates. Eventually they can set the entire table and maybe even help wash the delicate glassware afterwards. You increase the difficulty as their skills improve. It's the opposite for the person with dementia. They start by setting the entire table, but as their skills diminish, you reduce the complexity. Eventually, maybe they can only be included in conversation as you set the table, but it's important to keep them included. You create positive experiences by applying this approach to different activities such as laundry, cooking, washing dishes, gardening, basically anything else. Maybe they were always the cook but now struggle with the complexity. Put them in charge of preparing the ingredients. Let them set the table as mentioned. You may simply have them sit close by and engage them in conversation regarding previous meals or foods they like. The point is to keep them involved and maintain their purpose while doing things together. I found this quote in an article. Even if a person's dementia is so advanced where they can't focus or sing the song, the fact they're sitting in a group while holding a book makes them feel like they're part of something. As I mentioned earlier, we all want to feel like we're part of something. Hopefully you can see how to create moments of joy even when performing activities of daily living which aren't always fun. Recreation, or having fun, such as singing, is what most people probably think of when I mention creating moments of joy together. These activities can be passive, such as bird watching, or active, such as filling the bird feeders. Early in the disease, while you still can, you must do fun things together. You need to work on those bucket lists. Take pictures, film videos, write memoirs, create photo albums. Do all of these fun things together. While your loved one may not always remember these things, you will always cherish them. As the disease progresses, your loved one will depend more and more upon you. You must continue to always encourage their independence while helping them feel successful. When an approach doesn't work, try something new. If they don't seem to be enjoying the activity, try a new activity. Change it up. You never know what approach or activity is going to work, so stay creative and persistent. Some of the most positive results came from the least expected, but they started from a caregiver who adapted, encouraged their loved one, and tried again. You want to turn what feels impossible into the possible. Let's look at another example I found, and I'll be quoting it here. We had a woman who used to play the piano, recalls Rothenberg. Eventually that diminished, but we put her by the piano, and she placed her fingers on the keys but wouldn't do anything. We then put up a sign that said, "Please play the piano." She would play, but then she'd forget and stop. We gave her a song sheet, but discovered that was too difficult. We realized the notes were too small, so we enlarged them, and she played the music. She was able to continue for much longer than if we hadn't done any of these things. In this example, you can see how easy it would have been to simply give up and let her sit off to the side, but they didn't. They stayed creative, they adapted, and they were persistent in their search for a solution. And you can do it too. Just don't give up on them. Other recreational activities can include hobbies, playing games, being social, exercising, and even taking field trips. If you don't know the person very well, be sure to complete the person-centered profile to help you better understand their likes and dislikes. Now, we often hear about activities that are beneficial for the person with Alzheimer's or other dementia, but it's just as important to consider you, the caregiver. Living successfully with the disease requires both the care partners to enjoy therapeutic enrichment that benefits their mind, body, and spirit. But because you're possibly the only person caring for your loved one, it might be difficult for you to find time to be alone and enjoy activities that are beneficial for you as well. There are fun activities you can do together that will simultaneously meet your needs while providing beneficial stimulation for the person with Alzheimer's. Nature has a way of soothing our soul, whether it's the fresh air on our face, the sounds of birds chirping, or the smell of a flower field. There's a healing effect from spending time outdoors. I discussed this at length in episode 2 on how to maximize the healing benefits of the outdoors in Alzheimer's care. Taking walks together, visiting the beach, or going to a local farm are ways to get closer to Mother Nature. Animals are often used in therapy. Dogs, cats, llamas, and even horses have proven to have positive effects on a person's demeanor. Aside from spending time with the family pet, some communities have petting zoos where visitors can feed and pet the animals. Some horse ranches, for instance, also focus entirely on helping people with unique needs, such as those with dementia or autism. Music definitely tops the list with how it can instantly impact a person's mood and bring back a flood of memories. Beyond simply listening to music, you can dance, sing, and even play instruments together. Hobbies and crafts are a great way to create something together that will continue to provide joy to others for years. Whether it's crocheting a blanket or painting a picture, the feeling of accomplishment by making something that others can use or appreciate for years is very rewarding. These keepsakes often stay with the family and provide cherished memories for generations. Spiritual activities are very important for many people as well. Maybe it's attending church, watching it on TV together, listening to gospel music, or someone reading scripture. I've mentioned how we're social beings, and the importance of staying social for as long as possible should never be undervalued. We need interactions with others to stimulate our liveliness. It's too easy for the care partners to fall into a world of isolation. Fear of what others think or how they may act may cause you to withdraw from family, friends, and society. Changing these tendencies is important to the health and well-being of both individuals because meaningful human interaction, whether in a one-on-one situation or in a group setting, is important to everyone's happiness. But remember, people with dementia eventually lose the ability to filter multiple stimuli. As a result, socialization may need to be kept to low-key gatherings. For example, a party with music, children, and a lot going on is probably not a good idea. Also, if possible, socialization should occur away from home whenever possible because of all the extra benefits from getting out and going on an outing. Memory cafes, church gatherings, family events, or having guests visit your home are good ways to get socialization into your routine. Walks together or with friends to the local park, lunch with family, or having a volunteer visit and give you some respite can also be very beneficial. I mentioned that it might be difficult for you to find time to be alone and enjoy activities that are beneficial for you as well. But all this responsibility creates a lot of pressure and strain on you as the caregiver, so you must find ways to get me time and recharge your batteries. To do this, you need support from others, and I realize this can be extremely hard for many of you, and you're left doing everything yourself. I have a resource page on Togetherness which is intended to help you discover ways to get support, and check out the show notes for that link. And be sure to listen to episode 6, where part of the discussion will focus on putting support systems into place to help you balance your caregiving responsibility with your need to get away. That concludes this episode. I hope you're now inspired to create moments of joy through purposeful activities and meaningful engagement. Please remember, activities should focus on abilities, not deficits, and fulfill each person's needs. It's about enjoying time together and creating new, loving memories. Thank you for taking the time to join me today, and be sure to head over to the show notes to get all the reference resources at togetherness.com/episode 5. And I can't wait to talk with you in episode 6, where I'll dive into putting a plan of care into place that will help you ensure that the mental and physical well-being of your loved one is maximized at all times by combining the goals of the care recipient, your family, and other care partners. As a result, you will have more of that me time I talked about, and you will also have a more safe and enriching home. Because without a plan, you might be going in circles. Bye now, and be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. You've been listening to the Alzheimer's Podcast with Mike Good of Togetherness. For more information and to get the resources mentioned in this episode, visit togetherness.com/podcast.